Then I have to remember to upload it.
Sapphire, it says hatching eggs. Not quite hatching eggs. This is hatching lines, but I love that little dash of humor. So at the top of your page here, you're just gonna write hatching. And hatching, those of you that have heard it before, does anyone want to venture at some kind of definition? What is hatching? That's a really good start of a definition. Yeah. Putting lines in a drawing to signify light, different line weights that come together to form shading. Yes, those are really good. So what we're going to write right here for hatching is repeating. And if I spell something wrong, I apologize. Repeating parallel lines, varying in distance and line weight to create value. Okay. Oh, I just realized that's not all on the screen. Okay. So now that should all be on the screen. So go ahead and copy that definition down. And I think I did spell parallel wrong. I definitely did. There's 2 L's here and only 1 L there. So ignore my typo.
Oh, cross that one out.
Oh, it's gonna look so weird. Okay.
That's all right. That's better.
There we go. I knew I couldn't get through this without spelling something wrong.
But you caught it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for not judging me, Sophia. I really appreciate that. So repeating parallel lines, varying in distance and line weight to create value. Oh, you would have messed up too. You guys are so nice to me. You're so forgiving. Okay. So once you have your definition written down, I actually need to move this on my screen so I can really see it. Okay. Once you have your definition written down, I want you to take your ruler and we're going to make a rectangle on our notes. I'm sorry, I have to put my paper at an angle, otherwise I just can't draw correctly. So I know it's probably a little wonky to look at, but I'm just going to make a rectangle going all the way across your page and make it about 2 inches big. Not huge, about 2 inches. So this distance is what I'm talking about 2 inches. Would you look at that? I almost got it perfect. And then we'll just connect our edges. And if this isn't like a perfect rectangle with 90-degree angles, that's okay. It's not, this isn't about the rectangle, it's about what we're doing inside. Okay. And then you're gonna go through and create square boxes. So we are gonna make 5 boxes. Hopefully I can get my spacing correctly here.
Can you hear the ambulance?
No.
No.
Oh, now I can. Okay. And again, if your boxes aren't perfect squares, it's not about that. So don't worry. Okay. So let me know when you guys have that done with just a yes in the chat. Ooh, speedy box drawers. Love it. I'll wait for a few more yeses. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's look back at our definition. Repeating parallel lines varying in distance and line weight to create value. So let's think about those first two terms there, distance and line weight to create value. So in terms of distance, if we want something to be darker, do you think our lines are going to be closer together or farther apart? Closer, exactly. And in terms of line weight, if we want something to be darker, is our line weight going to be thicker or thinner? Ah, that one tripped you up a little bit. So if we want it to be darker, our line weight is going to be thicker. So we're making nice thick lines for areas that are dark. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a value scale. And a value scale means that we're going to start really dark in this box, and we're going to get progressively lighter as we go to the last box. So this one should be like really close to black, and this one is going to be a very, very light gray. So if we're going based on our distance and line weight, if we want this box to be really dark, our lines are going to be really close together and they're going to be really thick. So I'm going to use my thickest Sharpie, and I'm going to go through and just start making lines. So I am keeping these lines really close together. There's like hardly any white space between them. And our definition says parallel lines. Parallel lines as close to parallel as your hand will naturally draw. It's not important that you do this with a ruler or something, because hatching really isn't about being perfect. It's kind of more free form. So I'm making lines really. I don't know if you guys can hear that. My cats are wrestling with each other and they're being pretty loud. Really close together and using my thick Sharpie. So you can see if my lines weren't perfectly parallel at the end there, I started to. That's a really good question, Michael. So hatching lines can go in any direction. I'm starting these vertical and I'm going to do a different direction for each box just to show that. But that is a wonderful question. Hatching lines can be in any orientation. They can be drawn at any angle whatsoever. So we have our first box here, and that is our darkest dark. That box should be really dark. And then just go ahead and let me know when you got that done. Okay, cool. All right. So then I'm going to go to my second box. I'm still going to use the same Sharpie because I'm still at a pretty dark value. And this time I'm just going to make my lines a little bit further apart from each other. And I'll make these diagonal just for fun. Cool. We've got some value going on. Okay, so for this next box, this is going to be our absolute middle shade. So for this one, you can choose to either keep working with the thicker Sharpie or you can switch over to the thin one. It's really a matter of preference. I'm going to stay with the thick one. And I'm just going to go ahead and make another set of lines, this time increasing the distance. And I might try and use the tip of my Sharpie a little more to get just a bit of a thinner line. And how about I'll make these horizontal. Hey, you can already see the value starting to take shape there. We're getting progressively lighter. It's pretty satisfying to look at. I think it's like one of those satisfying images. So now I'm definitely switching to my thinner Sharpie because now we're getting to the pretty light values. And if we look back at our definition, that means we need to change the line weight accordingly. So I'm switching over to my extra fine point Sharpie. I think you guys pretty much are getting the gist at this point. I'm just increasing the distance between my lines. I'll do these to make it like a perfect diagonal. So you can see there, that difference in line weight actually made a really big difference. And this looks a lot lighter than the one right next to it. Awesome. Okay, I'm glad you guys are following along pretty quickly and easily. So then for this last one, my lines are going to be pretty far apart from each other. I'm going really light with this one. And this one actually could stand to be a little darker. I'm going to put a couple more lines in there. This is the cool thing about hatching is that you can always go back into a space and make it darker or lighter really easily. That looks a lot more of a smooth transition. You don't have a thin one. Yeah, that is perfectly fine. If all you have is a fine point Sharpie, you can just really space out your lines a lot more. Or you can also use a plain black pen. That works too. But on your final drawing, it absolutely would have to be plain black with no colors or anything. That does work. Okay. So let me know when you guys are good to go. And I'll give everyone a minute to catch up. Some of you might be a little, oh, okay. You're all pretty much on track. Okay, isn't this so satisfying to look at? I love doing value scales. Okay, so our next term we're gonna write down, move my computer out of the way here. Our next term we're gonna write down below this one is cross-hatching. Okay. Even if you've never heard of this, can anyone venture a guess as to what cross-hatching might be just based on what we know about hatching? Yes, Lillian, exactly. Diagonal hatching, but two ways. Lines cross instead of being parallel. Using repeating lines and overlapping them to create distance and line weight and shadows. Yes. You guys got this. You got it. So we have repeating lines again. Oh my gosh. Typos part 2. Repeating. Hopefully you can read, but that's supposed to be a P right here, not an A. Repeating lines that intersect and vary in distance and line weight. To create value. So you guys hit the nail on the head. Really, the big difference here is that instead of being parallel, our cross-hatching lines are going to intersect with each other. So we are going to make another rectangle of 5 boxes. So you can just go ahead and grab your ruler and make another rectangle. All right, and now we're going to do the exact same thing that we did for our hatching scale. We're going to start with the really dark here and work our way to the light. So cross hatching can kind of be done in 2 different ways. I'm going to show you different ways in these boxes. So the first way that you can do it is by making broad, full lines. So I probably need a few more lines in there. And then I would come in the other direction. And cross over like that. So cross hatching is actually kind of fun, I think. Okay. And then another way that some people do cross hatching is they just make little X's. So you can also do it like this. and kind of fill up a space like that. And this method of making these X's, this is actually really useful when you're trying to allude to texture, because it feels a lot more textural than this box here where we basically made a grid. But you can see how it kind of creates the same effect. We have these overlapping lines that are creating a dark value. And you can just go back in and add more little X's wherever you see a little too much white. So that's what I'm doing right now. So those are kind of two methods of doing cross-hatching. And you can figure out whichever one works best for you, because different people will like different things. And you can have more than one method in the same drawing, but we will talk about that more tomorrow. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to go down my value scale with some cross-hatching. Again, switching over to my fine point. Whoa. If I don't toss it across the table when I get to the lighter values. And if you don't have a fine point, again, just space out your lines more. So we're looking at distance and line weight. So if you only have distance instead of line weight, that works just fine. Okay. Now we've got two hatching value scales. Yay! You're on your way to becoming hatching masters. And not of eggs. Okay. So, actually, I'll just give you guys a minute. Let me know in the chat box once you're finished with your cross hatching scale. Dun, dun, dun. Isn't it kind of fun? I think it's kind of fun to hatch. It's like playing with pencils. That's what cross hatching feels like. It's like playing with markers. Okay, cool. You think it's fun too. All right, awesome. I'm glad you think so. So our very last thing that we have here is freeform hatching. That's what I'm calling it. I don't know if that's an official term. That's what we're going to call it. Freeform hatching. Yay! I'll put an exclamation point because it's exciting. So freeform hatching. And what I mean by this is that you are creating your own lines. So use of non-straight lines to hatch or cross hatch. Okay. make one final rectangle. If you ran out of room on your paper, that is fine. You can start a new page for this one. I know I'm using sketchbook paper, so it's a little bit bigger than standard notebook paper. Make one more rectangle. My last one got a little big there. So freeform hatching, use of non-straight lines. What I mean by that is that all these lines here, they're just like plain old straight lines. For this freeform hatching, you can make any kind of lines that you want. And you'll want to consider texture. So this freeform hatching is a nice way to add texture. It's also just a nice way to make your drawing kind of decorative. So these lines then, yeah. So it can be any, it can be any kind of lines that you want. So I'm gonna do whatever kind of lines here, but I want you guys to experiment with your own types of lines. So I'm gonna just start with like a basic curved line here. Whoa. So making these like little semicircles. I really want you to experiment with the kind of lines that you find exciting. So for instance, if you have trees or anything that has like a texture that you want to make, we'll talk more about it tomorrow. But so if I was using these curvy hatching lines, this would allude to my object being more rounded, right? So if I'm using curved lines, it's kind of like a more rounded object, whereas these straight lines are alluding to like a straight flat surface. But they don't have to adhere to the surface either. They can just be decorative. So you can do it with hatching or cross hatching. So for this next one, I'll do some cross hatching. Make some squiggly cross hatching lines. This is where hatching gets really, really fun. Is it better to use freeform hatching for spears? I wouldn't say that it's better, but it would allude to a more realistic form. So if you want something to look very realistic, then it's good to make hatch marks that follow the contours of the shape. Yes, I'm going to do that tomorrow, Lillian. So what is due today at the end of class is these notes. And then when we get to class tomorrow, I'm going to show you guys an example. I'm going to draw hatching on my imagined space drawing. So don't worry about implementing this on your own yet. We'll do some more of that tomorrow. Today is just kind of getting to understand what hatching is and how you can use it to create value. That's what this is all about. So you can see like this one turned out really fun. Like this got me a really fun texture and it's a cool value too.
One that's really good, I was just thinking about Sing Chen's question, actually using circles, like scribbling in a circle pattern and varying your circle like diameter so that like where it's lighter, you have bigger circles, and where it's darker, you can make tighter circles. That's
I'll do that for the next one.
That's a fun way to shade.
Yeah, let's do that for the next one. And that's a type of line too. Lines don't have to be, like lines can make shapes, basically is what I'm saying. So yeah, you can do that. Freeform hatching can be fun. Oh yeah, sounds nice. It does sound nice. Sounds like these are gonna be some fun drawings to make. Okay. So there's my freeform hatching scale. Yours can look different. Yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine. Make whatever kinds of fun lines that you want. Because lines are fun, because art is fun. Okay. Mr. He's laughing at me. I love hatching. It's my favorite way to shade. It's way more fun than just like gradating with a pencil.
I'm gonna miss the sing song. You guys are gonna miss the sing song effect because I'm not gonna sing to you folks.
Oh gosh, I guess I do that. It's so subconscious.
It's adorable.
Let me stop the recording.